Essence. He came that afternoon, late that afternoon, and he came into Marsha Gillespie's office. Now, we were in a brownstone. Marsha had what was it, like a screen dividing her office. But there were two walls, and she's a historian, came out of Time Inc.'s, history department. And he was fascinated, I'll never forget this, by the images, late 1800, early 1900.
Folks, we lost Susan Taylor. Man, I want to get her back so I can hear the rest of that particular story. So, folks, if y'all can work on that, I would greatly appreciate it. I want to go to Rock Newman. Rock, first of all, when you heard Susan Taylor, you heard her talk about the influences of Muhammad Ali in terms of culturally in his mind. What's interesting to me is that you were the manager for Riddick Bowe. Every heavyweight who followed Muhammad Ali had to follow in his footsteps. Those were some huge shoes to walk in.
Riddick Bowe was a sort of a duplication, if you will, of Muhammad Ali. At 13 years old, this aimless kid, discovered Ali, became a fanatical a worshiper and follower of his example. And it was Ali's example that propelled him to become the heavyweight champion of the world. And I can tell you something. It certainly was Ali's example that inspired me, that when Riddick Bowe became the heavyweight champion of the world, the first press conference afterwards, we said, we don't want to just use this as a sports platform. We want to make a difference in the world. And we went to South Africa and met Mandela. We went to Somalia and delivered supplies to the starving refugees there. Those are the kinds of things that's the kind of impact that Muhammad Ali had on me, a little country boy from Brandywine, Maryland. And also last night I was doing a show and this lady called in crying. She lived in a small village in Senegal, and Ali came there. And perhaps he's the only person in the world that went to that remote village in Senegal and they know who he was. And as he went down the street, they did what they have done in arenas throughout the world. They chanted, Ali, Ali, Ali.
Great call, Shariah McDonald. Greg, I want to start with you first. I keep making this point in terms of his boldness when it came to his blackness. That spoke in a different way to African Americans and also Africans. You talk about the cultural influence, the fight in Zaire, how he was perceived across the world. I mean, this went way beyond than just a boxing champion. He connected also with Muslim countries because of his faith.
That's right. And, it's interesting, Roland. The best book on Ali, as far as I'm concerned, is Ishmael Reed's new book, The Complete Muhammad Ali, because he really talks about the fact that Ali's love was unconditional. Here he is in Zaire in 1974. Mobutu Sese Seko pays $10 million to get him and George Foreman over there. Incidentally, the great concert with Bill Withers and Celia Cruz and others take place over there as well. It's an important black cultural moment. At the same time, the Mobutu has got the blood on his hands of Patrice Lumumba. I mean, so, but for Ali, it wasn't that complicated. Ali is loved because he embraced all versions of blackness, and it was international. You see Ali do the same thing here domestically. When he is suspended, when he can't fight for those 3 years, he travels the college lecture tour circuit. You see black people to this day at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, at Howard, at Tennessee State. He goes to black colleges. People are absorbing this, and he's absorbing them. Finally, one of the points that Ishmael Reed makes is that, it is his love for black people in some ways that may have led to the shortening of his life. He fought way beyond the time he was supposed to be fighting. He was taking care of so many people, giving out money here and there. I mean, you see Ali literally sacrifice his physical well-being in some ways because of his unconditional love for our people.
Shariah, when you think about, and I got about 45 seconds before I go to break, when you think about, as I said to Susan Taylor, his poetry, when you think about fashion, when you think about his looks. I mean, this is somebody, again, who, when you talk about a cultural icon, if you worked at fashion magazines, if you worked at beauty magazines, everybody wanted a piece of Muhammad Ali because of what he represented.
Oh, of course. I mean, I can imagine it would have been a dream to style him for a magazine if you could. He's exactly the sort of person that you want, who will just light up in front of a camera, who's just got this wonderful charisma about him. that just translates so well into photographs, as we've seen. We have this wonderful library of images of Muhammad Ali, where his beauty as a person and as an athlete just comes across so well. And he had such a self-awareness about that.
Hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we're going to hear from Chuck D, Rupert Jesse Jackson Sr., Dick Gregory, as they reflect on the life and legacy of Muhammad Ali. We'll also read for you some powerful, powerful words from President Barack Obama as he paid tribute to the greatest right here. News One Now, TV One.
The influence was unmatched. He inspired a lot of us to be greater and to overcome the circumstances that we were faced with, that were placed upon us. You know, so I love everything he brought to the table.
You met Ali. What was it about him that made him so different? So how would you define, when you say the greatest, how would you define that?
I would define it as a great athlete, but even more a better humanitarian, and wanted to challenge the system, make the changes for our people. And young athletes today don't understand that, you know, you can have all the richness and all of the gold, but you're not whole until you do something for your people and for this country.
Hey, folks, that was Spencer Haywood, who also took the NBA to the Supreme Court and won his case. I talked to him yesterday here in Memphis for the St. Jude FedEx Classic. Joining us on the phone line right now, folks, is Chuck D, Public Enemy. Of course, we know him well. And so, Chuck D, are you there? Okay, so we're trying to get Chuck on the phone. I was told we had Chuck. Let me go to Dick Gregory.
Good morning.
Dick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I hear you well.
Okay, Dick, first and foremost, what did Muhammad Ali mean to you personally?
Well, it meant to me that there's something on this planet that we don't know about. There's something, this man is universal. There are no words. You know, we as human beings think we have to answer something because somebody asked us. When I think about him and what you say about him, I think about a baby laying in the crib, and you say something to him, and they give you a noise back. That noise means everything good. And this way he was. Anything that happened in the world, he felt it, be it good or bad. But it was never showed in his personality. He said what he had to say, and when it was over, he didn't linger on it. He went back to that happiness that he had. He went back to that love and peace that he had. And the more hatred you threw on him, the more water he threw back in the form of love and kindness. He walked down the street. He didn't need no bodyguards. He didn't need none of that. And so here's a man, he was always on time, regardless of what time it was. And he would stand with you today after your show was over and show you some jokes, tricks, some magic. And at 4 o'clock this evening, you was the one that had to leave, not him. And so when I think about over this weekend, looking at the whole world, send out love, not hatred, not bitterness, not meanness, then I think about the dinosaur. I mean, we all know what the dinosaur is. It's been gone for 3 trillion years. But what few of us know is the dinosaur was here, so was the butterfly. So was you look around and you look at the turtle, all of that was here. A little gentle butterfly, a little gentle turtle, and the most evil viciousness that you can see from 3 trillion years ago was the dinosaur. And what the dinosaur was the turtle. So let me say to you what I thought about this weekend. Here's a turtle. Was here when the dinosaur was here. The bee was dinosaur was here, and yet they still
Right.
here. And so you look at him, and I used to call him a turtle. Well, what do you mean by that? You hard on the outside, soft on the inside, and willing to stick your neck out. That was Ali.
Dick Gregory, we appreciate you joining us right now. Thank you so very much on TV1 News 1 Now. Folks, when we come back, we'll talk to Chuck D. Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., Kevin Blackstone about Ali, Muhammad Ali, the greatest, right here in News 1 Now, TV1.
He was able to voice his opinion without anyone caring about it. Like he said what he wanted to say, and he felt it was right. So he was able to voice his opinions. So to me, that was what made him the greatest.
Welcome back to News 1 Now, TV1. We are focused on the life and legacy of the late, great Muhammad Ali. We talked about Vietnam. We've talked about his impact in terms of culture. We've talked about what it means in terms of his blackness and his fame. But the reality is this: Muhammad Ali was a boxer, was a great boxer, three-time heavyweight champion, and that's something that we also want to deal with right now. We still have Dr. Greg Carr, we have Soraya McDonald, and is Rock Newman still there, folks? Let me know if he's still there. Soraya, as a journalist, as a sports journalist, I think it's important for people to remember that when you talk about Muhammad Ali's speed, his size, his 80-inch reach, his coordination, I mean, he brought something to boxing in the heavyweight division that frankly had never been seen before. And when he said he beat Sonny Liston in Miami, he did indeed shake up the world.
He did. He was indomitable. Just talking to people who had the opportunity to see him fight, he just had this style about him. I mean, he was so fast, and he had a willingness to take risks that other boxers wouldn't. You see writers talking about the way that he would dodge punches and he would lean back instead of just letting those blows go over his shoulders, which kind of puts you in danger of, if someone comes back and they hit you into the ropes, that's not a good position to be in. But he had such confidence in himself and his abilities, and that turned out well for him.
Greg Carr, again, when you talk about his enormous fights, both Sonny Liston fights, Joe Frazier,
yes.
Coming back from again the long layoff, the fight of the century, yes. George Foreman. We talk about the Thriller in Manila, Leon Spinks, the sad fights of the Larry Holmes fight when Larry Holmes was pleading with the referee to stop the fight. Yes. I mean, this is someone who again was so different than anything that we had seen before, and who talked trash and backed it up.
Roland, I mean, it's important to understand, in that early Liston fight, the first Liston fight, the second Liston fight, you're talking about Liston maybe landing a total of 30 punches out of both fights. By the end of his career, Ali is absorbing in the neighborhood of 400 punches. That second match with the Thriller in Manila, where he said it was as close to death as he's experienced, you're talking about a man who absorbed an enormous amount of punishment. That's important to understand for a couple of reasons. Number one, it had a direct impact probably on the quality of life for the rest of his life. And number two, it creates this larger-than-life persona for a person who really has not been a public figure for basically 20 years. Ali, the athlete, is so inconceivable to some people that they literally put him on a pedestal that then infects everything else. And understand that the height of his popularity, he transitions from a guy who they would kind of call the Louisville Lip and clown. When he joins the Nation of Islam, now you're talking about somebody who's a gifted athlete who's a Muslim. That's very important to understand. So now it's almost like Muhammad Ali in passing now has to become like a unicorn. Hopefully we won't see this replicated. That's when Soraya said what happened with the Supreme Court. They could not allow the case to say anybody in the Nation of Islam doesn't have to fight because we'd all join the nation. So they had to find a technicality. People are looking at this guy, and the outsized personality he had in the ring then became the blueprint for his outsized personality in life.
I believe we have Chuck D, a public enemy, on the phone. Chuck, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. That was well
Chuck,
said. Yeah. It's like brother
Chuck,
Gregory,
Chuck,
man. Everything was well said by staring at the TV like, who's this man that looks like us that basically is just grabbing the microphone, saying what he wants to say, taking God under another name that we're probably not used to. And we're talking smack dab in the middle of the 1960s, when we as a people went from Negro to colored to black by the end of that decade. And the magnitude is almost just like, words can't even describe it. So I think the model
Chuck, is it safe to say that Muhammad Ali probably was the one athlete that rappers probably integrated in their music more than anybody else?
No question. One of the main reasons that we were just mesmerized. He just didn't just go from an athletic point of view. He spoke, he grabbed the mic, he took it, and we just were stunned. And our nursery story came across the kid, the fact that he rhymed just caught our attention even more. So, I mean, and as a grown-up person, and a person that's been in many countries, you recognize that Muhammad Ali ties into the diaspora and into the world, and his internationality was a thing. It's a great model for people today.
Chuck D, we appreciate you joining us with your reflections on Muhammad Ali. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Peace, y'all.
I want to quickly go to Kevin Blackistone, journalist. I got about 90 seconds before I got to go to the break, Kevin. And Kevin, every heavyweight boxer since Muhammad Ali has been measured by the Ali standard. That's a lot of stuff you got to walk through.
Absolutely. I mean, he was boxing for most of my childhood and early adulthood. I thought that he was invincible. He had a style and a grace and a presence and a domination in the ring that I certainly had never seen before and grew up in awe of. So absolutely, yeah, he was the one who really set the standard. And I think there's an interesting thing said about him, just technically speaking about boxing. If you ever saw or read the series on Jack Johnson, the Torres, the great boxer and historian, talks about what separated Muhammad Ali from everyone else. And he talks about how you learn in boxing that when you stand in front of a punch and it's thrown at you, you don't back up, you move from side to side. Because if you back up, the train will eventually get to you. But in Ali's case, he was such an outstanding athlete that he moved back and the train never caught up with him.
Kevin Blackistone, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much for your reflections on Muhammad Ali. When we come back, my final thoughts about the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. Folks, in a statement released by President Barack Obama, he said that a pair of boxing gloves of Ali hangs in his private study. He also celebrated Ali, and he said this, which I thought was extremely important in terms of this particular quote that Ali once said, "I am America. I am the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky. My name, not yours. My religion, not yours. My goals, my own. Get used to me." That was Muhammad Ali. That's what he said to America. But he also had a tremendous heart, a tremendous love for children, a tremendous love for people, but especially for black people. His daughter, Hannah Ali, released a statement just yesterday. And she said that as the family surrounded the hospital bed of Muhammad Ali, he's there, his organs had failed. He literally is dying, but his heart kept beating. And she said, and it kept beating. And it beat for 30 minutes after his organs had failed. That's a champion, folks. That's somebody who gave it all. That's somebody who didn't, his heart was failing, his kidneys were failing, he could not breathe, yet his heart was still beating. The reality is this: the heartbeat of Muhammad Ali is inside of all of us. It will always be with us. If you are a boxer, if you're an activist, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're black, you're white, it doesn't matter. The heart and the spirit of Muhammad Ali will always be with us. He lived 74 years. He lived a great life. And when he gets to heaven and meets with God, he can say, well done, my faithful servant. We want to thank all of you for joining us right here on News One Now on TV One to celebrate the life of Muhammad Ali. Tomorrow, we'll have more on his life. We'll talk to folks who knew him well. We'll also have more details of his public funeral in Louisville, Kentucky on Friday. For all of us,